I was in school in Texas, and during the summer I enlisted to become a paratrooper in Dallas, and then I was sent to Mineral Wells, and then from then directly to Toccoa, Georgia, where they're forming the 506th Regiment. And it was kind of an experimental basic training program for paratroopers. And then after I became, I was initially assigned to a Company E as infantry, and then when they started forming the medical detachment, I was asked if I'd want to be a medic, and I certainly did want to become a medic, and from then on I was a medic. My parachute training primarily consisted of what I already knew as a Boy Scout. We were a little bit primitive in those days, and my friend Ed Pepping and I both had Boy Scout training, and that's what served us well. There was one other additional bit of training we got, and that was to how to give shots. And they used oranges for that. But unfortunately, in true Army fashion, we never ran into any oranges in combat. Usually you just used your head on the spot and did the best you could, size up the situation and do the best you could. My trip overseas was on to Samaria, and it was an old tub that the English ran, and it took a long time to get there. I don't know, it seemed to me like it was a couple of weeks, but maybe not, but I think it was. And we were dodging a submarine, supposedly, and arriving there was something special, too. It was great when we were coming into the port. It was a Blackpool, I think it was. The Spitfires came alongside and welcomed us in. And so did the Nazi woman on the radio welcoming us as well from Germany.
Tell me about your first jump into a combat zone, and what do you recall about that?
My first jump in combat was in Holland. Well, I came in on, it was a Sunday afternoon, and a person came through my chute, collapsed my chute, and I hit the ground pretty hard. He landed on my chest, and his first question was, "Where's the enemy?" And I told him he was standing on him. And then he took off, and I took care of another person that couldn't walk because he'd hurt his ankle. I gave him a shot of Novocaine, and he was okay. And I carried all the medicinal alcohol, 190 proof ethyl alcohol, and I carried the full surgical kit for the surgeon as well. Went into the town of Zand, and the people all came out to welcome us and feel free and all that sort of thing, waving their flags. And then the Germans opened up, and the townsfolk disappeared immediately. And I stepped back in the doorway, and a woman's hand came out with a spoonful of cherries and gave me cherries to feed while the Germans are firing down the street. What a contradiction that is. And I never got to see her or talk to her because the firing stopped, and I just took off down the street. I was on my way into, I was with the 2nd Battalion heading towards Eindhoven. We were close to Eindhoven, and there was a call for a medic. And in Company E, I told the surgeon, "I'm going up, check this out." And he said, "Goodbye." And I went up there at the edge of the woods, and the Company E people were in a ditch, sort of. And I asked, "What's the problem?" They pointed overhead out to the empty field there, a field, and there were 4 houses on the other side of that field, to a person lying on the ground. And I said, who was that? And they said, Lieutenant Brewer. I said, all right, I might as well go out there. There's no sense crawling out there. It's wide open, and he'd been shot through the neck, right below the jawline. And I told him I was there and who I was and that I'd take care of him. And I got he was like death warmed over, his yellow jaundiced look, And I finally found a vein. Oh, I had a hard time getting my plasma. We had to mix our own plasma on the spot. And I found a vein and got it in, and then I heard a crack. In the meanwhile, the medic from Company E came out, one of them, and I heard a crack, and I thought the Germans had broken my bottle of plasma after I just got the vein and all that sort of thing. I looked, no, it's not broken. I didn't think of being shot, I was thinking of my patient and my medicinal equipment. And then the medic got clipped in the heel, and he ran back to the woods again, back to Company E. And the dirt was kicking up all around me, and so I lied down next to Brewer, and in my best best bedside manner, I said, "Are you dead?" He said, "No, but I don't know why not." He's croaking that out. And I said, "Okay, I'll stay with you." And then the two guys came out, and they got hit too. And then the Dutch came out. No guns or anything. They came out to help us. They came running out there. One of them grabbed up, took Brewer's carbine and fired at the house where the German was. And all 30 shots went off at once because he had the double clip and he had fixed it so it would fire automatic. All 31. He threw it down. And then while I was lying there next to him, I got hit. And I felt like a mule kicked me. And I looked back and my calf was laid open like a lamb all the way down the bone. And so I gave myself a shot of morphine so I wouldn't go into shock. And I now had 3 other patients plus myself. Well, they put Brewer on this ladder and took him to they take him to the farmhouse where the Germans were. Oh no, where the German was. They took him in the second from the left and he was in the right from the second floor. And I said, "Oh, they're going the wrong direction." Well, I got to follow them, and I couldn't walk very well, but there was a wagon road just perfect to the house that he went into, and I was able to get there on my own. And meanwhile, the people were helping the other two or three guys, the Dutch. They didn't have any weapons or anything. They were out there in the field getting fired at just like I am. And boy, I had to give them credit. I tell you, they were something. And we got into the house, and on the way in, I heard a woman hollering at the other end of the house, "Tote, tote," that meant somebody's dead. And I don't know who it was. And the thought occurred to me many, many years later that could have been someone that was killed by the German, by us initially when we first attacked across there, or by their own Dutch people when they fired at that house. But I never did find out. And that haunted me to this day. That has haunted me to this day. But anyway, we went into the house and we got everybody patched up. In the meanwhile, the morphine was beginning to work on me. And here this woman had this nice, clean, Dutch clean floor, and I knew something was going to happen. So I made a symbol of a bowl and doing with my hand, so it looked like something's happening. She caught on right away, got the bowl, and I didn't mess up her floor. Well, we got all patched up and went, and then we got out to the corner of the crossroad, the little street that was right in front of them, and then the one that went to Eindhoven. We were discussing which way to go, and I wanted to go back to Zaan, and they wanted to go, and the doctor showed up from somewhere, I don't know, Dutch doctor. He thought we should go to Eindhoven. Well, what settled was a group of a platoon of Germans on the other side, back of the house, in another field, came along and was firing at us. Well, I couldn't run. They had found a cart, the Dutch people had, put the other guys on the cart, and took off towards Zaan. I dove headfirst into this round German-type foxhole, and two Dutchmen pulled me out, put me on a wheelbarrow. Where they get these things, I don't know. All of a sudden, there's a wheelbarrow, and here they have me and one on each hand, and we're running down the street too, and the Germans stopped firing at us. I guess they figured it wasn't worth it. So we got out of that all right. But I went all the way to Bastogne and on to, I went to the hospital and came back, and I had no clothing other than I had my pants and stuff, but I mean, I didn't have my own jump jacket. I didn't have anything. A flight jacket my brother gave me that I met in England. So I had this cloth flight jacket, just like McAuliffe's. And I was at that time stationed with the regimental aid station, which was right across the patio from the divisional McAuliffe's. But anyway, when we were being shelled, I could feel the eyes on me. If I got hit, that jacket would have been off of me before I hit the ground, I swear. But we managed to get out of that. That was a fun place, Bastogne was. A little bit chilly. And I almost got killed there, too. And a shell came through the wall right over where I was, right about where I was when I was sitting up. And it just broke away. It didn't explode. Huge pieces. So it must have been a pretty good-sized shell. And I think what happened was that somebody that was forced labor had been involved in the manufacture of this shell and sabotaged it. Otherwise, I'd have been on my way to Saturn by now. And in Bastogne, we a German soldier, about 17 years old. I said, he spoke English. Says, "What do you think of my switching uniforms with you?" He says, "What do you think?" He says, Why switch? What do you mean switch uniform? I look, we're going to Germany. You wear my American uniform, you'll be at home. And if I wear your German uniform, they'll send me to the United States as a prisoner of war, and I'll be home. He says, he looked at me, he says, the hell with you. He says, you go to Germany, I want to go to the United States. Whether he ever did or not, I thought he was pretty cocky for a prisoner of war. Usually they're kind of cowed, you know. Yeah, but there's so many different stories that are both before the war, before combat and after combat. And I ended up being with the division then in Bastogne. I mean in Berchtesgaden, and I'd go up to the Eagle's Nest quite a bit. And the division surgeon sent me over to the Berchtesgaden Hof to check it out to see what medical needs there would be, because they were going to convert it to a center for people coming in like Air Marshal Tedder and dignitaries coming in to visit the Eagle's Nest. And I reported back that it was all taken care of. Oh, did you move in? I said, yes, I moved in. So me, a staff sergeant medic, was the house physician for that hotel. Best duty I ever had.
Did you find any wine?
I did find some wine. I knew those Germans had hidden that booze somewhere.
Where was that?
And I searched 3 days and 2 nights, and I found it in a tunnel going between the hotel and a manor house across the road. I found 1,000 bottles of all kinds of alcoholic beverages from the United States, Canada, Holland, you name it, the name of the country, they had it. We hauled it out and we're selling it over the bar. I kept what I wanted, a double cabinet full of stuff. And whenever the bar closed, I would open it up to the Australian officers. The bar is open. They said, no, it is just closed. I said, no, the bar is open. And we go upstairs to my place, continue the party. I had access to a convertible Opel that a general belonged to, an English general, and he asked me if I knew where General Kennard was. I was in Berchtesgaden. I said, yes, I do. He's in Bad Reichenhall, which was about 13 miles or so, something like that. And it was you had to drive along this snake-like road that went right alongside a rocky river, you know. And he said, now be careful, drive. He says, you take it back, I'll get back another way. And he said, but be careful, there's petrol in there. And I said, oh boy. So what I did was just aim it. I didn't floored the accelerator and aimed it. And they heard this thing howling. The Germans the women were carrying the big packages. The guy in front with lederhosen smoking a pipe, you know. They would hear this thing howling, they'd jump in the ditch. And I get to the checkpoint where there would be this striped gate, you know, shattered it to smithereens, went right on through it. They got to the point where they just opened the gate when they hear that thing howling. And then the MPs would come after. I had access to a Packard car the Germans had with the Africa color on, a light tan color. And I would drive to Salzburg on the Autobahn with that. And the MPs would come after me. I'm doing about 50 miles an hour. 45 was the limit. They'd come out with a Jeep. I'd let them catch up with me and I'd just take off. Now they knew I was going to come back. So I'd come idling along as I came up to them, and they'd come out after me, and next thing you know, I'm gone again. They never did catch me.
Was there anything else about Berchtesgaden that stands out in your mind?
Oh gosh, there's so many different things I can't think. Oh yes, there was. There was a fellow came in. One of our troopers came in and said, "You want a pillow?" I said, "Oh, that'd be nice to put on my office desk on the first floor there." And it wasn't very comfortable, but it was better than the hardwood chair. And then a few days later, 2 MPs came in with a woman, and she pointed right to that pillow, and they took the pillow and opened it up, and it was chock full of diamonds and rubies and sapphires, individual stones, unset but polished in little cotton claws. You know, the thing was just full of gems of that caliber. Here I've been hatching these things and didn't realize what I was sitting on. No wonder it was so uncomfortable.
Was there anybody in Easy Company that stands out in your mind that you'd like to speak about?
Well, the one that stands out in my mind is Dick Winters and Mike Rainey and one of the sergeants and Captain Sobel. You know, Captain Sobel was the initial captain, and he was a martinet in a sense. But they didn't have any faith in him because on maneuvers he didn't know one left hand from his right hand. He couldn't read a map right. He'd get them lost. He just wasn't a combat leader, and they had no faith in him. They figured that he'd take them on and get them all killed. And there was almost a point where the regiment command thought that there was going to be a mutiny, there wasn't going to be any mutiny, but they took it seriously, and they pulled him out and put in another. And the person that replaced him, and by the way, this was the beginning of the Band of Brothers. This is where they bonded, but they bonded on a negative basis. And then they, as I see it, and then I put in Winters, and Winters was the exact opposite of Sobel. He had the respect of the persons. They knew he was competent. They knew he was pretty bright, and that he was respected them, and that he knew what he was doing, and would know what to do when he was in combat, which proved to be very true. And then that switched from a negative bonding to a positive bonding. And then later on, even after the war especially, the company people felt that Captain Sobel was the one that really hardened them into being the group of guys that they were, and that formed the bonding, you know. They helped develop the atmosphere for forming a bond. And so that's how this Band of Brothers came about, as I say. And that term was, Mike Rainey was the sergeant that was involved in this thing, and he's the one that came up with the Band of Brothers business, because his grandson asked him if he had ever been with a hero, and he said, nobody was with a band of heroes, you know.